The UFC usually likes to take it and they'll run with it. I believe Islam Makhachev will fight Carlos Prates next. He even said it on the commentary desk. He didn't say it in the presser, but he said it on the commentary desk. Prates has done enough work. I think he should be next. I think Morales should come after that.
And he should fight somebody else, he said.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know if there's anybody behind Morales that could beat him. And there's not many people in front of him, right?
Well, they're saying if it is Carlos Prates fighting him next, do you think that Prates has what it takes to beat him?
No.
Do you think Islam retires?
I think Carlos Prates is a stud, but I think style-wise, Makhachev, he's just going to get so close so fast and just get him to the ground so often. It's going to be a tiresome fight of just trying to keep Makhachev off of him. But I think Carlos is a tough fight. I think he was fighting Ian Gary, then maybe he would have won that fight. But I think style is just coming to play in that case.
And when Islam has two viable opponents, Prates and Morales, and doesn't say I'll fight one of them and then I'll fight the other one of them. When he says put them together, what does it mean for him, at least for the interim? Does that mean he's taking a break? If we were to build Morales versus Prates, which by the way is possible, but if we were to build that and we were going to do it with expediency in mind, from the time that we announced that fight, to hold that fight, to recover from that fight, to sign the winner against Islam, to go through training camps, to go through a media tour, and to see them play out in a best case scenario.
Ariel Helwani believes Carlos Prates could be the next opponent for Islam Makhachev at welterweight. While Michael Morales and Shavkat Rakhmonov are also in the conversation, Helwani feels Prates stands out as the strongest option. He points to Prates being more active and having higher quality wins, which could give him the edge over the other contenders. In Helwani's view, Islam Makhachev versus Carlos Prates could be the matchup the UFC ultimately chooses for Islam's next fight.
And I probably wanted to see those fights more than any other challenge at 170. But now, him versus Carlos, him versus Michael Morales, him versus Shavkat, maybe a rematch down the line against Ian Gary. Sign me up. I can't wait to see how it all plays out. And so who are they going to go with? They had Carlos there, they had cameras on him, they did the split screen with Michael Morales and Carlos Prates. I feel in my heart of hearts it's going to be Carlos Prates. I feel like that's the move. That's the guy who's been more active. That's the guy who has the higher quality wins.
Carlos Prates revealed that Islam Makhachev told him he should be next, and he said it was great to hear that from the former lightweight champion. Prates also mentioned that Islam wants to stay active and could return toward the end of the year or early next year. When asked about the potential matchup, Prates made it clear that he would love to fight Islam in December and is ready whenever the opportunity comes.
Afterwards, Islam said that he thinks you should be next. That must have been good to hear, right?
Yeah, really good.
He also said that he wants to be active, that he doesn't want to take a long break, maybe come back end of the year or early next year, which is...
I hope.
What do you think? What do you think about when it could happen?
I hope so, bro. I hope so. I would love to fight in December, you know.
Javier Mendez says he likes Carlos Prates and what he brings to the table, and he would be happy if the UFC chooses Prates as Islam Makhachev's next opponent. However, Mendez is also open to Michael Morales or Shavkat Rakhmonov, saying all three fighters are deserving of a title shot. He believes Islam has to be ready for whoever the UFC puts in front of him, and they are all legitimate challenges at welterweight.
So, Carlos Prates is a character. I like what he does. I like what he brings to the table, and if the UFC wants that to be our next opponent, I'm happy about it. Then if it's Morales, I'm happy about that. And if it happens to be Shavkat, who's probably the most deserving out of all of them due to the injury, then I'm happy about that too. Look, we have to fight whoever they put in front of us. So why am I being, I'm open to all of them because all three of those guys are deserving of a title shot. All three of those guys.
Henry Cejudo says he doesn't currently see anyone in the welterweight division beating Islam Makhachev, but he would love to see Islam face Michael Morales or Kamaru Usman. Cejudo also likes Carlos Prates and believes he will probably get the title shot, but if the goal is to give Islam the toughest possible competition, he believes Michael Morales is the better choice because of his undefeated 18-0 record.
Well, do you think anyone in the welterweight division can beat Islam right now?
No, but I would love to see him up against Michael Morales and Kamaru Usman, because I think we all saw what happened with Prates and Ian Gary, and I like Prates. He's probably going to get the title shot, but if you want to give Islam the best competition possible, it's the undefeated fighter, 18-0, Michael Morales.
Sean Brady says Islam Makhachev could struggle a little against bigger welterweights and believes Islam may need to fill out more at 170 pounds. When asked about the next title challenger, Brady says Carlos Prates is definitely the most deserving and should be next in line. However, he believes Michael Morales would be the toughest test for Islam at welterweight.
He struggles a little bit with the bigger guys. He's probably a little bit taller than me, but I'm definitely heavier than him. So he's just got to fill out a little bit more at 170.
Is Carlos Prates the most deserving to be next in line?
Yeah, Prates is definitely the most deserving, and then I think Morales would be the toughest test for Islam, though. But Prates is definitely next.
Michael Bisping says Carlos Prates and Michael Morales are both possible options for Islam Makhachev's next opponent. He suggests one of these two could be next in line, but the key question will be whether they can defend Islam's takedowns like Ian Gary did. Bisping believes the matchup will ultimately come down to who can stop Islam's wrestling and keep the fight standing.
However, I'm sure Michael Morales or Carlos Prates were watching that and thinking, oh shit, I can beat this guy, right? That will make them very confident. However, do they have the same takedown defense that Ian Gary had? Probably not, right? That's what those fights are going to come down to. Can they stop Islam's takedowns? Now, who is going to be next? Well,
Islam Makhachev says he isn't sure whether he wants Carlos Prates or Michael Morales next and suggests they could fight to determine the #1 contender. He's happy to see strong contenders like Prates, Morales, and Shavkat Rakhmonov in the division, saying they motivate him to train even harder every single day because they can provide serious challenges.
And just last for me, there's videos of Carlos Prates and Michael Morales backstage arguing about who should get the title shot against you next, and they both want it. They both think they deserve it. How do you feel?
I don't know who I want to choose, no matter who is them. Maybe let them fight. Why they not fight in this card to see who is the #1 contender, But it's okay. I am happy we have some real contenders in this division. And these guys, Morales, Prates, Shavkat, they make me training every day more hard. But because I see this is the real fighters who can give me good fights.
Mighty Mouse says Islam Makhachev is one of the greatest fighters of all time, highlighting his impressive win streak and status as a two-division champion. He believes Islam is still the man to beat, even with tough challenges ahead against Carlos Prates and Michael Morales. In his view, Islam has the skills, experience, and championship mindset to get the job done against either contender.
He's one of the greatest of all time. Skills, 17-fight win streak, double champ, lightweight, welterweight. Ain't nobody beating this man. He's got a tough test against Carlos Prates and Michael Morales, but I think Islam can get the job done.
On the Barnhill Brothers podcast, they argue that Carlos Prates deserves the next fight with Islam Makhachev. They acknowledge Michael Morales as a strong option, but say Prates has faced tougher competition and already owns wins over two former champions. They also point out that Prates is reportedly training at the UFC Performance Institute, possibly preparing for a matchup with Islam.
Yeah, Carlos Prates versus Islam Makhachev is the right next fight. I know a lot of people were saying Morales should get it, but Morales' strength of schedule since he's been in the UFC isn't near as tough as Carlos Prates. And I know he's got that 18 or 19-0 record. It looks really good on paper, but a lot of those came from outside of the UFC, and Carlos Prates has basically beaten two former champions since the last time we saw Morales fight. So I think on merit, you kind of do have to give it to Prates. And one thing I really enjoyed seeing out of his training footage, apparently he's at the PAI and he's already training for Islam Makhachev.
John Morgan believes Michael Morales should be Islam Makhachev's next opponent, saying Morales is the fighter who deserves the next matchup. He feels this is the fight that makes the most sense right now and hopes the UFC moves forward with it. Morgan also points out that Islam is chasing his legacy and has already broken Anderson Silva's record for consecutive UFC wins, making his next opponent an important part of his career.
So, I'd like to look. I would like to see Morales next. I think that's the fight that I think should be next. I think that's the one who's there and should get the next matchup. Simple as that. So I hope that's the fight to make next.
I think when you're Islam, right, you're chasing legacy, and everyone's talked about his legacy, talked about where he's at, and he's beat the record. He's beat Anderson Silva's consecutive fight win streak record.
Denis Shkuratov highlights Islam Makhachev's growing legacy and the challenge of moving up to welterweight, one of the UFC's toughest divisions. He points out that Islam is facing a new generation of dangerous fighters and is already looking toward a potential matchup with Carlos Prates, which could happen before the end of the year if everything falls into place and the UFC makes the fight.
Sort of 12 months. All right, let me just quickly ask you about the legacy thing, because not many people are giving Islam kind of credit for what he's done. He went up to one of the worst divisions you can move up to. with a bunch of killers in their 20s, and is now trying to fight Carlos Prates basically before the end of the year after.
Danny Segura believes Michael Morales could knock out Islam Makhachev if they meet at welterweight. He admits Islam could still beat Morales, especially with his wrestling and grappling, but Segura says he has a strong feeling that Morales has the power and size to give Islam serious problems. He also believes Islam Makhachev versus Michael Morales could be the next fight to happen.
Dude, I was watching the fight and I couldn't help but think that Michael Morales knocks him out. I really do think so. I really do think so. Could Islam beat him? Of course. I'm not saying like it's a 10 out of 10, it's a given, but I've had this feeling, and I've told you this before.
Danny Segura believes Michael Morales could give Islam Makhachev more trouble than Carlos Prates, despite Prates being the current #1 contender. He says a bigger fighter with serious power and strong defensive wrestling could be a difficult matchup for Islam. That's why Segura wants to see Islam Makhachev versus Michael Morales next and hopes the UFC makes the fight.
In my opinion, someone that's huge, that's got power, and that has a good defensive wrestling, man, I think that's going to give Islam Makhachev a lot of trouble, more than Prates, to be honest, even though he's the #1 contender. So that's the fight that I want to see, and I hope that's the fight that happens.
Who do you think should be Islam Makhachev's next opponent, Carlos Prates or Michael Morales? Both fighters are making strong cases, but only one can get the next big opportunity. Drop your prediction in the comments, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more UFC news, predictions, and updates.